Respect to Satou Sabally, she had the kind of take a respectful competitor has after the Fever beat the Wings. Sabally has really made the Wings, I think, into a dangerous...
Naturally, the moment people began discussing the possibility of Satou Sabally joining forces with Caitlin Clark, another question immediately followed. Why would Sabally consider leaving the Dallas Wings at this stage of her career? For several seasons, Sabally served as one of the central figures within the Dallas organization. Her performances helped shape the team's identity, and she quickly became known as one of the most versatile players on the roster. However, professional sports careers often involve difficult decisions. Players constantly evaluate where they can grow the most, where their talents can shine, and where they might have the greatest chance to compete for championships. Sometimes that means staying loyal to a familiar team. Other times it means pursuing opportunities that promise a brighter future. In this case, some observers believe the growing spotlight surrounding the Indiana Fever could play a significant role in Sabally's thinking. Ever since Clark entered the league, the Fever have become one of the most visible franchises in women's basketball. Games involving Clark regularly attract national attention, media coverage, and massive fan engagement. The team has quickly transformed into a centerpiece of the WNBA's growing popularity. For a player like Sabally, joining that environment could offer several advantages. First, there's the competitive side. Playing alongside a generational talent like Clark could create opportunities for easy scoring, creative offensive plays, and deeper playoff runs. When teams focus their defensive energy on stopping Clark's long-range shooting, other players often find themselves with more space to operate. Second, there's the exposure. Athletes who perform well on highly visible teams often receive increased endorsement opportunities and media recognition. In today's sports landscape, that kind of visibility can be just as valuable as on-court success. Finally, there's the championship factor. Basketball history repeatedly shows that the strongest teams are often built around powerful partnerships. If Clark and Sabally ever shared the same roster, their combined skills could make the Fever one of the most dangerous teams in the league. At that point, the conversation would no longer be about potential. It would be about dominance.
One pick, people are going to go after you. Whether it's for the right or wrong reasons, but people are going to go after you because they see greatness in you. And what the WNBA is measuring one type of greatness against the other greatness. So, am I saying it's right that she's being pushed in the back? No, that's foul. That has no space in the sport, and we all know.
The news that Satou Sabally is officially moving on from the Dallas Wings felt almost like the final moment of a long performance coming to an emotional close. After spending multiple seasons with the team, Sabally leaves behind a legacy built on consistency, versatility, and strong individual performances. During her time in Dallas, she established herself as far more than just another forward on the roster. Statistically, her impact speaks for itself. Across recent seasons, Sabally averaged roughly 15.7 points per game, along with strong rebounding numbers and around 3.6 assists per contest. Those figures highlight the wide range of contributions she made on the court. She wasn't simply scoring points. She was facilitating offense, defending multiple positions, and creating opportunities for teammates. Her 2024 season added even more evidence of her abilities. Sabally averaged nearly 17.9 points per game, while shooting an impressive 45% from long distance. For a player of her size and position, that level of shooting accuracy is extremely valuable. Few athletes in the WNBA can stretch the floor in the same way. When defenders try to guard her closely on the perimeter, she can drive to the basket. When they give her space, she punishes them with three-point shooting. That versatility is what makes Sabally such a dangerous opponent. Coaches value players who can adapt to different roles within a game. Sabally fits that description perfectly. She can operate as a primary scorer one night, a defensive anchor the next, and a facilitator when the offense needs balance. Because of those qualities, many analysts consider her one of the most complete players currently competing in the WNBA. Her departure from Dallas therefore represents more than just a routine roster change. It signals the end of one chapter and the potential beginning of another.
The WNBA. Satou Sabally has confirmed she will not be returning to Dallas in the next upcoming season in an unrivaled press interview. She goes to state, "I've already communicated with Dallas how grateful I am because they've made this a home for me for the past years, and I'm working with them together in finding the next home for me because I've already..."
Now, when discussing the future possibilities of this situation, it's impossible not to focus again on Caitlin Clark. From the moment she entered the WNBA, Clark immediately transformed the conversation around women's basketball. Her rookie season felt less like a typical debut and more like the arrival of a new era. Game after game, she broke records. She delivered deep three-point shots that stretched defenses far beyond their comfort zones. She created highlight reel passes that left both fans and opponents stunned. And perhaps most importantly, she demonstrated an ability to perform under pressure that many veteran players spend years trying to develop. For spectators watching her play, it often felt like witnessing the rise of a future legend. Sabally herself has acknowledged Clark's unique talent, describing her as a generational player capable of influencing the direction of the sport. That level of respect between two high-profile athletes naturally fuels speculation about what could happen if they ever play together. Of course, the story surrounding Sabally's departure from the Dallas Wings isn't entirely dramatic. According to reports, the separation between Sabally and the organization happened with mutual respect. She expressed gratitude to the franchise, acknowledging the years she spent building relationships with teammates and staff. However, another factor also played a role. Throughout her career, Sabally has battled injuries that occasionally interrupted her momentum. At times she struggled to complete full seasons, and maintaining consistent health became one of the biggest challenges she faced. Her $195,000 contract for the 2024 season also signaled that her long-term plans might still be evolving. For many observers, this wasn't simply a goodbye. It looked more like a carefully calculated step toward the next stage of her career.
She makes tough buckets. She gives us another option on the floor to run our off-ball screening action for. She gives us another player that can play with the ball in her hands in the two-man game. She just has a really high IQ and understanding of.
For the Dallas Wings, the departure of Satou Sabally creates a complicated situation. Teams rarely lose a player of her caliber without feeling the impact immediately. Sabally wasn't only one of the most productive athletes on the roster, she was also someone who helped stabilize the entire lineup. Players like that often serve as the glue holding everything together. They contribute points, defend multiple positions, support teammates, and help maintain confidence during difficult stretches of a season. Losing that type of presence can affect both performance and team morale. At the same time, Dallas appears to be entering a new phase. Reports suggest the organization is moving toward a rebuilding strategy, focusing on younger talent and long-term development. Several promising prospects are already being discussed by analysts and fans. Among those names are highly regarded college stars such as Paige Bueckers and Olivia Miles, both of whom could potentially shape the future of the franchise if they enter the league. Dallas leadership, including the general manager, coaching staff, and scouting department, is believed to be aligned around this new direction. Their goal appears to be constructing a fresh roster capable of competing in the coming years. Still, replacing a player like Sabally will not be easy. Her versatility, experience, and leadership made her one of the most valuable players on the team. Finding another athlete who can replicate that combination of skills may take time. And in professional sports, time is often the most difficult resource to manage.
I've already communicated with Dallas how grateful I am because they've made this a home for me for the past year.
As the dust begins to settle around the departure of Satou Sabally from the Dallas Wings, the biggest question across the basketball world is simple: what happens next? Whenever a player with Sabally's talent becomes available, speculation spreads quickly. Teams across the WNBA immediately begin evaluating whether they have the roster space, financial flexibility, and competitive potential to attract a star of her caliber. And that's where the conversation inevitably circles back to Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Clark's presence has already transformed Indiana into one of the most watched and talked about teams in the entire league. Since her arrival, ticket demand has skyrocketed, television ratings have surged, and the Fever have become a central storyline in nearly every WNBA discussion. Opposing arenas frequently sell out when Indiana comes to town, and Clark's performances consistently dominate sports headlines. Because of that attention, the possibility of pairing Clark with another elite player like Sabally immediately captures the imagination of fans. From a basketball perspective, the idea makes a lot of sense. Clark thrives as a playmaker who can stretch defenses far beyond the three-point line. Her ability to draw defenders creates space across the court. Sabally, on the other hand, is known for her versatility. She can score from multiple positions, defend effectively, and adapt to different offensive systems. Put those two players together, and suddenly you have a team that can attack opponents in several different ways. Defenses would struggle to decide where to focus their attention. Double-team Clark, and Sabally gains open space to operate. Shift coverage toward Sabally, and Clark has the freedom to launch deep shots or create opportunities for other teammates. That type of offensive flexibility is exactly what championship teams are built on. Of course, the situation is still full of uncertainty. Free agency decisions, salary cap considerations, and team strategies all play major roles in shaping roster moves. Nothing in professional sports is guaranteed until contracts are signed and announcements are made. But speculation continues to grow. Fans are already imagining what the Fever lineup could look like if Sabally ever joined the roster. Social media discussions, sports talk shows, and online forums are filled with debates about how powerful that combination might become. Some believe it could instantly turn Indiana into a title contender. Others argue that the league's competitive balance would become even more intense as rival teams look for ways to counter such a powerful duo. Either way, one thing is clear, the story is far from over. Sabally's departure from Dallas has opened a new chapter in her career, and the entire league is watching closely to see where she lands next. Meanwhile, Clark continues to shape the future of the sport with every game she plays. If these two stars ever do share the same court as teammates, it could create one of the most exciting partnerships women's basketball has seen in years. Until then, fans are left with anticipation, speculation, and one very intriguing possibility. Because sometimes in sports, the biggest stories begin with a single question. What if?